work together. And regardless of ethnic conflicts elsewhere,
we have all the same spirit to reach our community where they cannot be reached any other way but the language that they speak.
Three Tribals have given us that chance where we can talk freely and say our concern and share our ideas.
To me, this is like a family, and we're getting always from better and better. We're reaching out the community, and I think we are more known now in the community than we were before. I don't think this will stop very soon. I don't believe it, because the need is there, and there is more young people too involved that they want to get involved in broadcasting.
this station will always continue to provide information service to those communities. And the other group for whom this is really important are the older generations. As people get older, they go back to the language of when they were growing up, and we find that a lot of people really turn to the station for the music they used to love, news, and the language in particular. So, and that's a really important part.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm maternal and child health nurse for 35 years this year. I've been at more than 34. The part I love about maternal and child health is, I think, the clients. They include you on what I call a serendipitous journey of parenthood, and we see them at their most vulnerable, and yet they openly allow us into their lives, and for me that's a privilege.
I've been an employee of Moreland for 8 years now as a maternal and child health nurse. Maternal and child health nurses in Victoria are quite unique because we're the only state that requires being a registered nurse, a registered midwife, and then doing postgraduate qualifications in maternal and child health. And we're the only state that has a universal service that is provided or offered to everyone who has a baby in Victoria.
Maternal and child health is a very diverse area. We look at the health of mother, baby, the whole family, even the father's health. We'll refer where appropriate if the fathers need referral. So we do the whole family unit.
The ability that is there to have that continuity with your clients, get to know them and really sort of get involved in the community, a lot more so than what I had in my previous role in hospitals. So our role really is quite diverse, and it's a lot more than just weighing babies like some people think that we do.
My understanding of what the maternal child health nurse's role is, I didn't have a great understanding of it either until I had my first son. They support you through the first 4 years of your children's life, which is incredibly important, particularly when challenges arise, that they're the first people that I contact. You know, Amy was able to kind of guide me through things that I didn't even know I could do, and just reiterating that you're doing the right job, you know, so am I doing the right thing? And just having that rapport and that continuity of care from Amy with having her with both boys just, you know, made those challenges look like they were this big compared to life this big in my head.
Coming to Coburg and having been here so long, I'm now on to second generation families. I will see one grandmother brought in a baby and said, Jenny, you saw Robert when he was a baby, and Robert's 32 years old with his baby.
So it's pretty exciting that Moreland is celebrating 100 years of maternal and child health this year. I guess it just shows how important this service is to the community and what the community gets out of it, that it's lasted this long. For someone like myself who is relatively new to maternal and child health, you know, it seems quite impressive, but I bet to the nurses.
Good evening, councillors and members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming at home tonight. My name's Philip Priest. I'm the Group Manager of City Development here at Council. As the Mayor is not in attendance this evening, and as the Deputy Mayor is also an apology, councillors tonight will need to elect a temporary chair for the meeting tonight. Is there a nomination for a chair for the meeting?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Mark Riley.
And seconded by?
I'd like to second Councillor Mark Riley as chair.
Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Councillor Riley.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Priest, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to all of you. We are streaming to our viewers on live stream tonight for this meeting, as usual. Philip Priest, to my left here, is the Councillor for Group Manager City Development, and as the Chair for tonight's meeting, I would like to provide apologies for the Mayor, Labros Tapanos, and Deputy Mayor Oscar Yildiz. Is that right?
Yeah, you can call for it.
And yes, I'm just calling for other apologies. Oh, sorry, I'm just getting that up here. So yes, part of the reason why this is your speech, I beg your pardon. I'll just get the script right, it will help. Right. Yes, do we have any other apologies for this evening?
I think Councillor Alia Farnley was an apology.
Councillor Alia Farnley, and I should say the Councillor Natalie Abood is on leave of absence.
I haven't heard about Councillor Bolton, I'm not sure.
So we might see Councillor Bolton in attendance. Thank you. So
I'd like to move those apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And I'd like to
seconder. Councillor Davidson seconding. All those in favour of accepting those apologies? That's carried. Thank you. I'm just going to go back to our text now and acknowledge that we're having this meeting on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways, and we'd also like to pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Nations communities and who significantly contribute to the life of this city. Members of the gallery, please note this meeting is being recorded and web streamed via Council's website and Facebook. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Gallery attendees are advised they will be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. Members of the gallery, in the event of an emergency or a disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees, so please follow the directions of council staff and security officers if need be. And thank you for your understanding and cooperation in that. We've covered off on attendance already, so I think we can move on from there. We've dealt with apologies, so I'm going to, and I've acknowledged that Councillor Abood's on leave. I just want to call now for a declaration of interest or conflicts of interest. So councillors, are there any interests or conflicts of interest to be declared?
I'd like to have noted that Councillor Tapanos had a conflict.
Thank you. Do we need to note the nature of the conflict, or is it just...
It was indirect.
Indirect conflict. Thank you. Councillors, given that no one has, I don't need to read that out. I'll move on. Thank you. We've dealt with the conflict of interest. I want to confirm the minutes of the most recent meeting of the Planning and Related Matters Committee. So could I have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting for Planning and Related Matters held on the 27th of November 2019? I have being moved by Councillor Davidson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kavanagh is seconding. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All against? That's carried. Before we move on to the reports for consideration, I'll outline how Council and this meeting of the Planning and Related Matters meeting will run this evening. For each item, the relevant planner will introduce the report and the officer's recommendations, and then we'll give any objectors the opportunity to move to the lectern and make their submissions. And after this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you are making a submission, please clearly state your name and your address for the record. You are requested to present viewpoints and concisely be clear and concise on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said, and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you are opposed to the planning application, would you please inform the meeting why you are opposed and suggest an alternative approach which would satisfy your concerns. Please use this opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than the matters of detail in the officer's report. And also note that there is a limit of 3 minutes for each speaker, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce the time available to any speaker. So we're going to now move to the presentation of reports. And the one report we have this evening for this meeting is DCF 99/19, 4 Pearson Street, Brunswick West, amendment to planning permit MPS/217/823. I'll move to the officers to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. So as mentioned, this is an amendment to a planning permit at 4 Pearson Street, Brunswick West. Just to briefly outline a bit of the context, the subject site is located within an Industrial 1 zone, an area which is designated for employment generating uses. We'll note that across the road on the opposite side of Pearson Street, the land is zoned residentially, and there are a number of dwellings on that side of Pearson Street. In terms of the subject site, you can see on the right-hand side, that's an image of the site. It's currently operating as an F45 gym. The planning permit was originally issued in April of 2018 for that use, and some of the key conditions that are currently imposed on the planning permit include operating hours from 5:15 in the morning Monday to Friday, and then until 7:45 in the evening, with a gap during the middle of the day. And then Saturdays 7 a.m. till midday, and Sundays 9 a.m. till midday. There's a maximum of 36 patrons allowed, and one of the other key conditions is that all roller doors, all external doors and the roller door are to remain closed during classes. The amendment, as it was lodged with council and given public notice, sought to vary the hours of operation to allow additional hours during the daytime and during the evening, Monday to Friday, allow an hour earlier on a Saturday and 2 hours earlier on a Sunday. The application also sought to relocate some bicycle parking internally to the building and use that space in the front setback of the land for car parking, and also sought to vary the permit condition regarding the roller door to allow it to remain open during classes between 9 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. The application was advertised and 12 objections were received. The main issues related to car parking, operating hours and noise. And a planning information and discussion meeting was held on the 24th of October 2019, and that was attended by a number of objectors, the applicant, council officers and Councillor Riley. As a result of that planning information and discussion meeting, the applicant agreed to a number of things. The first was that they withdrew the proposed amendment to condition 6, so essentially that would mean that the roller door would remain closed. They amended their proposed hours of operation so that they would be seeking permission for the daytime hours during the week, but not increasing the morning or evening hours during the week, and then allow an additional 30 minutes of operation on a Sunday morning, so an 8:30 a.m. commencement rather than a 9 a.m. commencement. And there were no changes to the Saturday hours being pursued. They also agreed to install signage within the site reminding patrons to enter and exit the facility in a courteous manner, and permit conditions that limited music settings to 2 speakers to be set at 75% of their maximum volume, located towards the rear of the building. So it's recommended that a notice of decision to grant an amended planning permit be issued, subject to those conditions as agreed to by the permit applicant. I'll also just flag that there is an existing permit on the, a condition on the permit which requires that noise levels must at all times comply with the State Environment Protection Policy for the control of music noise, and that allows council to enforce noise limits and request further acoustic assessments if necessary. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galante. Are there any objectors or submitters present who wish to speak? please come forward to the lectern in whatever order you wish to do that. And if you could just please state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah.
When you start. Thanks.
My name's Linda DeFlorio and I'm a resident of 11A Pearson Street in Brunswick West, so that's between 11 and 15. My specific issue is the parking of vehicles that obstruct my driveway by patrons of the gym. I applied for hockey stick markings to be installed near my driveway in October of 2018 and was told that, quote, at the time the council office inspector came to review the site, no vehicles were obstructing my driveway and hence the application was rejected. The incidence of vehicles obstructing access to my driveway has increased dramatically over the past 12 months or so. In the past 5 weeks alone, I have made 5 complaints to the council about vehicles blocking access to my property, of which none of them have been acted upon. I have images of those vehicles and those complaints, which I will share with you. The most recent incident caused my husband and I to be late to work due to not being able to exit our own property with our vehicles. This was at 6:40 in the morning. I went down to the gym and it was one of the patrons at the gym that was blocking our driveway. The process of reporting a vehicle and simply waiting for a parking inspector to apply an infringement notice does not work, as most often the vehicles have moved before the inspector arrives. The process of reporting these vehicles online does not work either because there seems to be no consequence. I've received absolutely no correspondence from the council other than an automatically generated email saying that the complaint has been received. When I was 5 days late paying for the rates on a property that I have, I received an email from the council promptly reminding me that the amount is due and payable immediately to avoid interest charges. The notice I received about the registration of my dog also clearly states that if I fail to renew the registration of my pet, I will be penalised. It seems that this council is very quick to react to particular issues, but not the hard-pressing issues that actually affect the residents of the area. So my question now is, what is Moreland Council going to do to help alleviate my frustrations and my household's frustrations? And I'm sure that those frustrations are shared by other residents of the street. Here are the images for you, if you like. You're welcome to look at them.
Yeah, please. If you'd like to table them, bring them forward, we'll share them around. Thanks, later.
Of which that one was the worst.
Thanks so much. Just to say, in the role of the chair, that we are in fact dealing with parking matters right now. We're rolling out a whole new regime around the city, which is a really important advance in terms of trying to put conditions in. And I know I personally have discussed at the public information discussion session that we need to look at this, and I'm happy to come and meet with you, whatever the outcome of tonight's meeting. So if we could deal with that as a separate matter, but in terms of tonight's, it's a really pertinent question. Thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
And we'll take on the next speaker. So thanks so much for bringing that. I'm sorry that you've had to deal with what you've had to deal with. How many weeks were those 5 complaints? Can you just...
That's over 4 weeks.
Over 4. Thanks. That's a lot. Yeah, thanks so much. Sorry you had to deal with that, Leader. Can we have another applicant who'd like to speak, please?
Yeah. My name is Dean Albano and I reside at 3 Pearson Street, Brunswick West. I also am an objector. I will start with due diligence. I find whether you were there at the original granting of the permit, I think the council lacked in applying due diligence to grant this original permit. I think you people should look at yourselves before you look at the residents. Having said that, the hours desired I find are a bit intrusive to my point from where we live. I can't see the need to open up before 9 o'clock on a Sunday, and why not tack it on to the end of the day? Are we inconveniencing the patrons of the use of the premises over the residents that live there? I am quite sure that the applicant has better facilities at their council or attributed by their council. As for parking, it's already been said by the previous speaker, and I fully endorse their sentiments. All I've got to say, it's strange. I have looked up F45 hours, and they seem to have a right around Melbourne of opening up at 0515 hours early in the morning. So they must have a claim to this particular hour. Also, further to that, we would like to note that we do agree with the door being down and not up. I do concur. And just remember, and also was the original permit tick and flicked from council offices at Bell Street, or did you actually physically go down there? I'd like to know that answer one day later on. But if you do grant this permit in some shape or form, hope they do comply with what they have agreed to comply with. E.g., there was never a bike device installed when they were told they were going to install a device. So how can you remove something which never was there in the first place? So I hope you come up with a good response to our granting of the permit or objection. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dino. Are there other speakers?
Can I just ask a question? Sorry.
I was just going to take... Well, can we take questions at the end? Yeah, so... Sorry, yeah. Thanks, Councillor. Martin.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm at number 7 Pearson Street, and I'm here also because Lena has asked me to talk on her behalf. We just want to say thank you for keeping the roller door down. It's made an absolute huge difference, and we really appreciate it. We also appreciate you not changing the hours too early for the weekend, because we do work Monday to Friday, and having a little bit of a sleep in on a Saturday and Sunday, we really appreciate that. And I know parking is still an issue, and I know you guys are working on it, so I'm happy with everything. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there other speakers who wish to speak? Or councillors, do you have any questions to put to the officers, or do you want to ask any of the...
I just had one question. Was it Dino?
Yeah,
sorry.
Dino.
I just wanted to ask...
Please come to the lectern, Dino. Thanks.
So thank you for making your comments before about the application. Can I ask, of all of the proposal before it, you mentioned, was it not the opening hours on the Sunday? Is that something that you would like
Object
to see?
to?
You're objecting to that in particular?
Maintain. Look, I've got no objections if it's from 9 o'clock onwards.
Yep.
But I do strongly object from 9 o'clock before. I think the council has to also get in line with the EPA, or through the government. We have, if you look up the EPA Act, there's guidelines and there's law. Which one is it? How do you apply it? That's for you people at the bureaucracy level to work out how to apply it. I have rang up the police on numerous occasions with the noise, as the first speaker said, the time for enforcement to arrive as the events happen. But I have spoken with police at the Brunswick Police Station, and they've got a pretty clear cut and dry method of resolving the matter. If it's too loud and interferes with your privacy, turn it down or turn it off. They make the decision. They don't go into the pedantics on the spot. Work it out tomorrow morning with your solicitors or whatever you want to engage.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dino. We might just have sorry, I should have gone to the applicant and asked them to present, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow the script, I'm a little bit rusty. So would you like to come and present? Well, we might take some other questions of the objectors and the applicant. So would you like to speak tonight to the application? Well, please come to come and make your presentation, and then you get 3 minutes, and then we can ask questions afterwards.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Just state your name.
Sure, my name's Ben Owens, along with my wife Anya, we're the owners and operators of the business.
Thanks, Ben.
I don't have a prepared statement other than to say that we're a very small, specialised gym. Anya and I run it from our kitchen table. We are in the business. I know that place back to front. I know the bricks I've painted. I know everything. So I just wanted to establish that we're not a faceless organisation, big box gym. We've got 200 plus members. We know them all by name. Okay, so that's how we operate. It's important for later on. I acknowledge Linda's comments about the parking enforcement. We would actually agree with all of that, 100%, the hockey sticks, and we're happy for our members to be enforced should it be them who are actually in the wrong. Reference the comments about F45 starting at 5:15. It's the nature of a fitness industry that people want to do their activity early in the morning before work. It's as simple as that. I think you'll find any gym or fitness establishment is going to have classes around that time. So that's why we operate at the times that we do. The request for an earlier start time specifically on Sunday and for run through throughout the day through the week is purely based on demand. So we talk to our members, ask them what they want. Naturally, we've grown to a certain point where we need to add a few more classes, and ideally, that's what we would do. That's why we've asked for the time. The one thing I'd like to address, which I think has been misunderstood either by us or somewhere in the process, is the bike device suggestion. We don't agree to installing a bike device in the studio. The nature of our operations is that we move equipment around constantly. So every day we change the workout, every day we move stuff around. I don't think it's necessary to put permanent bike installation in the space. Granted, I'm happy to put as many bikes in there as the members want to park. It's literally just roll them in and lean them up against the wall that's free on that given day, okay? And that will change. We will also have issues with our franchise agreement with our franchisor, who I can tell you now is not going to let us put any sort of bike device in the studio, especially talking about the rainbow type devices. Plus, I think it's completely unnecessary and a waste of resources. For what it's worth, Anya and I work very hard on this business. We have tried to make allowances for the objectors. We've been disappointed at some of the claims and the statements that were made, which we thought were misleading at best and lies at worst. As a Air Force veteran and a marketing PR professional all her life, we would consider ourselves to be of the highest integrity. And I think that's another reason why we object to any form of device being placed on our music system to put a physical barrier into our system. Okay, so I don't think that's necessary at all. The parking, like I said, we agree with that. The hours of operation, there's been claims that we've operated outside of our permit. That is just 100% inaccurate and wrong. We are controlled by a central organisation in Sydney, being our franchisor. We operate based on the clock that they set, okay? So we operate at 5:15 every morning. That's when we start. It's not 5:14, it's not 5:16. It is literally a timer. You can stand at the front of our business and see it. It's the same time every day until such time as the computers are reprogrammed. So any claims that we're operating outside of that window are just categorically false.
So, Ben, can you just wrap it up, please?
Yeah, sure. That's it. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. We might take some questions and see. So stay there if you wouldn't mind, and we'll see if anyone has any questions for you or any of the objectors. Are there any councillors who wish to ask any questions of the applicant or the objectors? Any further questions of the objectors? Thanks, Councillor Davidson.
I've just got a question for yourself. In relation to the Sunday hours, so your proposal is for 8:30 rather than 9, and the sort of mediated point I think that was offered was to extend till 12:30 and start at 9, so extend out by half an hour. Could you just explain again the reasoning behind why you're suggesting 8:30?
Sure. So our original request was 7?
8 a.m.
Sorry, 8 a.m, which is ideal for us, but in the interest of negotiation, we've moved it to 8:30. A later class just doesn't, we don't have any demand for it. Our clients don't want it. The specific request is an earlier class. To be honest, we'd run a 7 a.m. if we could, but I understand it's not going to happen. It's people just wanting to get up, get the class done, and move on in the day. It's as simple as that.
Thanks, Ben.
Second question.
Yes, please.
So you mentioned about the installation of a device on the speakers. And from my perspective, it doesn't go to anyone's integrity. It's just a mechanism for making sure that the sound doesn't exceed what it's meant to. The alternative then is a report that can be requested, and at your expense you pay for that to ensure the compliance.
Is that an acoustic report that you're referring to?
The acoustic report, yeah.
Sure. So we've provided an acoustic report already. And the acoustic report, that's the other thing I'd like to say actually. So 2 speakers, 75% is the limit that keeps us 100% compliant across the day and night time under the set 1 and 2. That is a very conservative restriction. Okay, so the sound engineer tested the music levels on the footpath outside the residential building, and specifically mentioned to me that he's being conservative because there's a concrete wall that hasn't been accounted for, and of course the walls in the actual residence building that haven't been accounted for. And to my mind, the further away you move, like some of the objectors, 50, 100, getting up to 300 metres away, it's not even a factor. 2 of the 12 objectors are really the ones who are going to be impacted by music. So we're operating at the moment, we have been for a long time actually, operating at the limit, which is a very conservative limit.
So thanks, Ben. Are there other questions?
Just back to the hours of business again.
Thanks, Councillor Kavanagh.
The Saturday, you're still asking for a 7 a.m. beginning on Saturday?
No, I think we relented on that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. And you're at what time are you agreeable at the moment?
We operate from 7 on a Saturday.
Right,
we ask for 6.
Right, and so in this application, you're still looking to start at 7, or you're looking to start later?
No, we already start at 6.
Oh,
we already start at 7.
So you're keeping it
so
as
no
is.
change. The only two changes with hours.
That.
The only two changes with hours are we'd like to operate throughout the day, and that's primarily because at some point we might want to put a midday class on. Generally for mums, and then Sunday having an earlier class on Sunday.
I'm on with you now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Any other questions of councillors?
Are you able to just explain the bike parking situation, what's currently conditioned, and your reasoning?
Yes, sure. Yeah. Okay. So in our original permit that was granted, it was a requirement to put 2 of the, I don't know what they're called, the hoops that are all over there. Yeah.
Hoops, yeah.
Put those in the easternmost car space, so we'd lose 1 of 2 car spaces. Okay. We at the time were happy to do that. I've no reason, I'm not going to make excuses as to why we didn't do it. One of the objectors mentioned it. It was an oversight. We missed it. And then by the time we picked it up, we decided to put in this amendment to get that requirement removed. Okay. We're at the moment, we have up to 4 bikes parked out the front on the, there's already parking there on the street. There's 2 parking devices already there. I don't want to lose a car park because our staff use that car park. So we have 2, the staff generally pull in and they leave at sometimes as late as 9 o'clock at night. And I don't want them walking around the streets any later than that. Plus it's just convenient. We have people parking their bikes in the studio at the moment. It's not really, it's just a status quo for us. They wheel them in and just lean them up against the walls. It's fine. So I think the install. Yeah. Sure.
So in essence, then condition 1A, you'd like deleted, basically, is what you're saying.
If that's a requirement to put the parking, the stations in, yes, I think it's an unnecessary cost. The only reason I could see why it would be included is to give someone peace of mind.
Yeah.
And you're assuming we're going to use it anyway. We might put equipment all over it. You know.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Out of necessity.
Thanks, Ben. Just while you're there, take a seat. We'll may come back to you. I just would like Ms. Galante, if she could just comment, please, around the requirement for 1A, particularly around the requirement for bike parking, please. Just
Certainly. So the requirement for bicycle parking was at the request of Council's Transport Development Advice Engineer on the basis that as part of our planning assessment, we need to consider whether or not there's adequate transport facilities to the site. So there wasn't a requirement, a statutory requirement for bicycle parking, but it was on the basis of, you know, the 36 patron gym. There needs to be provision for bicycle parking for patrons to travel to the site, given that there's only 2 car spaces on site. And normally that does get formalised through bicycle parking devices so that those bicycles can be locked up properly, made secure, that kind of thing. So this was simply a requirement to move that inside rather than being outside.
And they'll be required to hang 2, at least a minimum of 2, is it, that they're required to install?
That's correct.
They could put more if they wanted to, but they have to put 2.
That's correct. And I'll just draw your attention as well to condition 13, which requires the bicycle parking to be installed prior to the commencement of the increase. So the 2 conditions are both linked to the bicycle parking.
Thanks. Are there any other questions of the objectors or the proponent, please?
Maybe just a couple of points.
Any other questions? Sorry, I beg your pardon. I was just.
Can I just let you guys say two more things?
Yeah, please come forward, Ben. Just before you do that, I'd just like to relay a message from Councillor Bolton, who's actually now an apology. She's running late, and is now a formal apology. So,
do we need another motion for that or not?
Accept that motion. Let's just do it quickly. Sorry, Ben. We'll just deal with this. Can I have a motion to approve?
Happy to move that Councillor Bolton's.
Councillor Cavanagh's moving that, and
accepted.
seconded by Councillor Dorney. All those in favour of accepting that apology? That's accepted. That's passed and amended. Thank you. Sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
I just want to quickly let you all know that we've also installed air conditioning in the last 2 weeks. Hence to Lisa's point about the doors. That's why the doors. We wanted the doors up just to get some airflow through. Occasionally we do put them up outside of classes just to get the air through, but we've installed air conditioning at a astronomical cost to reduce that impact.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah. Okay, thank you. We might move to, if there are no further questions, I'm going to ask that someone please move a motion. Do we have a motion this evening?
I'm happy to move the officer report with a slight amendment, all right?
Thank you.
And that is the removal of 1A, the requirement regarding the bike parking having to have a contraption, for want of a better term, inside, and also remove 13C. And with those two, that requirement, because I think, and if I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder? That's been seconded by Councillor Anna Olivia Carley-Hannon. So we have a seconder. Do you have a question, or do you want to speak in debate?
Sorry, can I just clarify that the hour on Sunday is to retain at 8:30? Is that?
That's in the officer report
Yes.
to be 8:30.
Yes.
Yes, that is. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
That's point 3. It's listed in the report as 8:30. Yeah. And I've got a seconder. So just briefly, look, I understand the concerns of the residents as far as the parking goes, and and if we haven't been as stringent on our enforcement, that's something that we can take offline, as the chair mentioned, and we will act on that. I am convinced, though, that I think the applicant is of a view to try and be as amenable as possible, understanding the concerns of residents. And the only thing about the bike parking, I think when we've got problems with parking in the area and complaints, if we can get one car off the roadway in that situation, that might improve things. And I'm sure that he's mentioned that people are welcome to bring their bikes inside, etc. So I just think it makes sense. So for those reasons, I'm supporting the application.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Would you like to speak as a seconder, Councillor Carley-Hannon?
Oh, I'm okay, sorry.
Speaker, is there any other speakers against? I'll take one. That was Councillor Kavanagh speaking in favour. Is anyone who wish to speak against, or would like to speak in favour?
Yeah.
Councillor Dorney.
I'm going to speak against. Just in terms of the bike parking, I think the officer's recommendations in terms of being able to provide some secure bike parking inside is a reasonable thing. I think that more and more people, particularly in Brunswick, are travelling to exercise and to do many things across the city by bike. And while we do have the bike parking out the front, I think while I appreciate that the extra car space is definitely needed, I would like to see the lockable bike parking inside the building as well. Can I talk about foreshadowing?
So you would foreshadow that if this is unsuccessful, you'll be moving the office recommendation.
So, Councillor Junior, you're foreshadowing. Can you just be clear what you're foreshadowing?
So I'd like to foreshadow a motion that point
retains
1A is retained. Yeah.
And 13. C.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Councillor Davison, would you like to speak? Sorry, Dino, we can't go into debate. We're in debate now, informal debate, so I'm sorry. Our questions have closed. I beg your pardon. Thanks, Councillor Davidson.
Okay, I understand the residents' concerns, and I thank both the applicant and the residents for thoroughly participating in the planning and information discussion night. I think that many concessions have been made to alleviate concerns, and I don't know if I can go as far to say I think it's probably built a better relationship between the existing business and the residents. I think that as a franchise, I don't want to jeopardise a small local business in Moreland from being able to thrive, and it seems like you're doing very well, and I congratulate you on doing so well with a franchise. It's not an easy feat to do. That's why I'm satisfied that the inclusion of an extra car space is necessary. You're leaning bikes against the wall. Let's not be too pedantic about these things. They're up against the wall. If people want to ride, they can still ride, and I'm sure you'll accommodate the space against the wall. They take them away and they leave. In terms of the sound, I'm satisfied that you've complied with the recommendations, and there's a provision in there to say that an acoustic report can be requested, and that would be at your expense if necessary. So I think on the whole, it's been quite a good experience whereby I've seen both the applicant and the objectors come to some sort of mediated reasonable agreement, and I will be supporting Councillor Kavanagh's motion to approve the recommendations with the removal of those conditions about the bikes.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. Are there any other speakers? I'll take that as speaking in favour. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? Ms. Buchan. Would you like to do that now or later?
Propose amendment now. You're not moving.
I'd just like to propose a slight amendment. That seeks for point 3, Sunday will be from 9 a.m. to 12:30.
Yes, it's appearing there now.
Yep. I forgot a seconder.
If we have a second for that amendment.
Is it acceptable to
Sorry.
I don't think so, only because I think I'm in two minds, but I don't think so because the applicant mentioned that about the demand wouldn't be there for 12:30, so I'm regrettably not going to accept the amendment.
Thank you. So we'll need a seconder for that amendment if we're going to include it or not. So Councillor Martin, you're seconding it, is that?
Yes, I'm happy to second it.
So we now have a seconder for this amendment that the Sunday hours be 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Would you like to speak, Councillor?
Yes, so I mean, overall, I am supportive of this application. I think it's looking at the change of an existing permit in a zone which really accommodates these kinds of uses. I do think that there is just being able to push it out half an hour, 30 more minutes, is going to be something that is going to mean a lot to the residents and contribute to their amenity. And then looking at accommodating that with half an hour in the afternoon. I am very appreciative of all the conditions that you have accepted as part of the application so far and the work that you've done. I know that you've made a lot of conditions have been set since the public information discussion with the residents, and overall I am really supportive of this application, but it's just that one little part that I think should we be able to just look at 30 minutes more on that Sunday to allow residents just a little bit longer for a little bit more amenity in the mornings.
Thank you, Councillor Dorney. Would you like to speak, Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak just briefly. I mean, thank you for everyone for coming. We really do appreciate a bit of debate here as a council group. It does help us make a decision. I think here we are making a weighted decision, trying to accommodate some of the resident concerns, but also trying to understand it from a business perspective. I'd also hope that the foreshadowed motion will also look to this new Sunday time as well. I think it's reasonable to ask the bicycle parking because that's what we ask of a lot of other applications that come before us. So I don't think we should be giving anyone any sort of special treatment. So that's why I'm happy with these hours, and I'm also happy with the officer recommendation for the bike parking as well.
So thank you. Are there anyone? I'm dealing with this amendment as such at the moment, the hours on Sunday. So would you like to speak
against the amendment?
Thank you,
Thanks,
Councillor Callaghan.
As mentioned by some of the other councillors earlier, I think it's important that we're looking at how to actually support this local business. And while I do think the amenity of the residents is incredibly important, and I thank you for raising many of your concerns today, I do see that for a gym to change it by half an hour when most people like to get up early and go to the gym will have a huge impact on the business and also on the patrons. And I want to recognise that the patrons are most likely also our local residents, and that 8:30am on a Sunday is not actually extremely early. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers in favour of the motion? Anyone speaking against this amendment regarding the hours on Sunday? If not, I might just briefly speak, which is having listened to the information discussion and so on and heard the many accommodations you've made as a proponent, I'm quite cognizant of the impact half an hour can make. I think I really appreciate the effort you've come to in terms of the noise and the parking and the issues that are there. I think making an extra car park is not something I'm more than happy to allow that to happen, because it's obviously about your patrons, and I understand many of the patrons do travel to get there, even though some of them would be local. I am aware that the extra half hour on a Sunday is to allow you to do an extra class, but by pushing it out to later in the day would still, I understand, would still allow you to do that, although I appreciate the arguments that have been put. So it's one of those balancing acts here around the noise, around the parking, and around trying to allow you to get on with the work of doing your business. So it's a difficult call, but I'm leaning towards supporting this amendment to allow you to actually have the third class. It just means that the patrons who will have more noise during the day from Monday to Friday, whichever motion gets put up tonight, and allow you to run those classes during the day, and means that they can continue to have their amenity on a Sunday morning with the impact happening further into the hours of the day, which I think is a better compromise from where I sit. So I'm going to... Do you need to speak in closing the debate? You're happy to put the amendment? I'm going to put the amendment that the Sunday hours be 9am to 12:30pm. All those in favour of that amendment? And vote for that. All those against? That's... I'm going to declare that carried with the casting vote of the chair. So we're going to include this amendment into the substantive motion that Councillor Kavanagh's moved, where we now have a proposal to accept this officer's report with deleting 1A and the last item on 13C. But including these new hours for Sunday. So returning to debate, does anyone wish to, have we exhausted the debate in this area? I think we may well have. I just to conclude in relation to this, I think I am, again, more than happy to see the car park being made available for use as a car, but I would like to see some formal provision of car parking, bike parking inside rather. I'm a bit concerned about how many bikes you might have up against your wall just as a safety issue, but that's, I'm sure, something you can manage as a business. But I'd like to see the bicycle parking provided as an amenity for the business and for the patrons, just inside, on top of them being able to lean them against the wall. It's just a good measure. So I'm just speaking, letting people know how I'll be voting around that. So we're going to put this motion now, there are no other speakers, that the amended motion is proposed by Councillor Kavanagh, deleting 1B and 13C. 1A. Sorry, 1A and 13C with these new hours for Sunday. So all those in favour of that motion? All those against? I'm going to declare that lost on the casting vote. So we've got a foreshadowed motion, which is now that we accept the original officer's motion with the Sunday, the new hours of 9am to 12:30pm. So would anyone like to speak to this? I think we've concluded our debate on this. So can we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Martin, sorry. So Councillor Martin's speaking. When we've exhausted our debate, I think we're going to put that motion. Everyone's understood. So all those in favour of the officer's motion with those Sunday hours? All those against? That's carried on the casting vote. Thank you very much for that. If there are no further, there's no urgent business. I'm going to ask the officer to outline further steps. I'll follow the script. Sorry, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. So the council has just determined to issue a notice of decision to grant an amended planning permit, and that's subject to the conditions broadly outlined in the officer recommendation, but with the further amendments as voted by the council. The next steps will be that all parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision, and objectors will have 28 days to appeal that decision to VCAT. If no appeal is lodged, an amended permit will issue, and then the applicant has a further 60 days to appeal any conditions to VCAT as well. If no appeal is lodged, then the permit will stand. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Galante. I'm going to item 6 on the agenda, which is urgent business. There are no urgent business items to consider tonight. So that concludes the business we have this evening. Councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live on stream at home, I declare the council meeting for planning and related matters closed at 7:17 p.m. And I want to wish everyone a very good season, end of year, and all the best for 2020 as well. And I want to thank all the officers for their work for this year. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.